Hello, everybody. My name is V the Victim, and this is my GG Season 4, Episode 10 review. Spoilers, obviously. As you well know if you watched the episode, I have been eliminated from Gielinor Games for the first time. And let me tell you, it's not a great feeling. I talked to Mr. Mammal a couple weeks ago and asked him if he felt like all the emotion from the week he was eliminated rushing back. He said yes, and let me tell you, I definitely do too. It's something that's really weird knowing the outcome of an episode long before it airs and then just having to wait and bottle it up. But I'm not too upset, and I'll get into that a little bit more later because first I'll talk about the challenge. The challenge was a lot of fun, honestly. I had single digit Tombs of a Mascot KC before this challenge, and I pretty much had no clue whatsoever what any of the bosses did. It was just new content that I hadn't experienced because I hadn't been able to play the game much since it came out. And when I heard it was going to be a TOA challenge, I was expecting to just bomb out and lose. Conversely, Hootie was supremely confident and settled one ahead and threw the sabotage on him. Hootie is Australian and he's playing on horrible ping to US East, but still manages to grab himself the sabotage because he is an extremely good PVMer, maybe the best one left in the games. So I got really lucky with the order of the challenge here. I was in the second group of 4 to go, meaning that I got the chance to watch people doing Kefri before I had to go into it. So I didn't know exactly how the boss worked, but I did get to see the proper strategy, the best way to play it, and I got to watch people avoiding the mechanics and everything. So I wasn't too scared of Kefri, and I ended up getting really lucky that Torvesta grief settled with the dung, trapped him into a very small area that he also ended up in, and that worked out incredibly well for me because although I also trapped myself in a small area due to my lack of knowledge about the dung attack, I did manage to get that area to myself. So Hootie and I basically just had to outlast Torvesta filling his and Settled's area with dung, and then we managed to grab the win. And I was really excited about this. Honestly, I figured there was no chance I was winning this challenge, and we got the announcement that only one person was going to be the tribunal from here on out, which makes sense given how few players are left in the games. And I didn't think I had a chance, but it felt really good to at least get through the first round. It was a really good feeling, and it felt like the week was kind of starting off on a high note. I also actually had Foe helping me out a little bit with the TOA challenge. I don't know what his motivations were here. Maybe I can ask him at some point. But he was giving me a couple tips when I wasn't up against him for the Kefri one. Just maybe he's just a nice guy, maybe. I don't know. And it's actually possible that he wanted to help me get through to the Akka stage so he would have one less person to worry about, which honestly makes a lot of sense because clearly I had no idea what was going on during Akka. But that was an interesting little thing. And then we got there, he basically said, all right, well, I helped you for Kefri, definitely can't help you out anymore. Unfortunately, that all came crashing down when it got to Akka because I had no idea how any of that boss worked. People are saying stuff like, if you're wearing certain armor, he'll be less likely to switch to you because you have high mage defense. And Foe is sitting there shouting out different colors during the memory attack. And ultimately, I just didn't perform very well, which, given that at the time of filming, I'd probably been alive for Akka dying maybe once, ever, I honestly was pretty happy with my performance. I was tanking pretty much the entire time. Unfortunately, I had not yet learned to butterfly or anything. And yeah, I go out and we get to see what is actually an incredible end to the challenge, where Hootie, Foe, and Roidy are all sub 20 HP, no supplies, having to tank it out. And we see Foe and Roidy both go for a redemption flick on the same exact tick, both miss it, and Hootie gets the overhead prayer correct. Both of the other two die, and Hootie goes into the tribunal by himself, winning the challenge despite a sabotage and nearly 300 ping, which honestly unreal. Massive props to Hootie for winning the challenge. Super impressive. And my only regret is that I didn't do TOA before this because it is a cool raid and it sure would have helped me a lot during this challenge to have any clue what any of the boss mechanics were, because I think I planked pretty much every time I did it for the few KC that I had at the time in a team. And they definitely were not solo, requiring me to actually learn something. But anyway, Hootie goes on, and I've been talking to Hootie quite a bit this season. He's in the same position I was in last season, where he's not like one of the big guys who's guaranteed to get an invite. He just happens to have been included and is a good player and is performing pretty well. And honestly, he's a much better player than I was last season or this season. So I did a lot of talking to him about the theory of bannings we were watching and stuff like that. And I kind of figured he wouldn't put me in. I expected that Hootie would not put me in. Unfortunately, Hootie decided to choose Settled. And after Settled beat Bodhi last week, I was really, really worried that he would, first of all, sabotage me during this challenge, which he realized wasn't necessary because I told everyone I hadn't done DOA at all. Or, at this point, pick me to go into the banning. Because I've proven that I can beat him in a final. And I think at this point, having beaten so many good competitors and having beat Bodhi, who beat Solo Mission, he's realized that he should be preparing for the final. Now, my strategy throughout the season has been to get the weakest people into the banning with me so I can beat them and stay in the competition. But as it gets closer and closer to the final, you really have to be thinking about the final, and that mindset flips. Instead of just trying to keep yourself in, someone who hasn't won a final before, like Settled, who's been performing well in the challenges, has gained the confidence to decide I should be picking the people who go into the final with me. And at that point, you want to pick people who you can beat in the final. The individual bannings, if you're confident you'll win them, are a lot less important. You want to have a collection of 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever number of other people that you can beat in the final. You want to set yourself up with a lineup that you think you outmatch in as many aspects of the game as possible. And as a result, Settled picks me for the banning. He doesn't want me in the final. He's got a lot of other all-rounders out of the way already, and he decides it's basically now or never because there's a chance I might beat him again in the final if I'm there. And honestly, I think it's a really good pick. In the past, like the Bodhi solo mission pick, I honestly didn't think was smart. It was just Bodhi being Bodhi and playing like he does, which is very respectable. But at this stage of the game, I think Settled picking me was very smart. I'm super washed, I swear. I'm not just saying that. I'm incredibly washed at the time, at least I was. I hadn't been performing that well in challenges, but I think there's still a chance that I show up for the final because I usually perform well under a lot of pressure. And I think that's probably the most important thing about winning a GG final. As for the banning challenge itself, there's quite a bit to talk about here. So first of all, Soup tells us to get to Ferox Enclave and said something like, I want to say it was, get to Ferox and we'll get started right away. And instantly my confidence soared because I'm great under pressure. I'm great at improvising and figuring things out really quickly and not crumbling under the pressure. Then he immediately followed it up with telling us that the challenge was to cast one spell from each of the 4 spell books as quickly as possible. And that we had, I think, 5 minutes or even 10 minutes to plan. And immediately my heart dropped because Settled, when he has time to plan, is so much better than I am. Or at least he was at the time. And he probably still would be now, to be fair. So I was pretty worried about this because I knew that Settled would be able to apply his current game knowledge and really good form that he was in at the time playing the game to this challenge. And having that time buffer there gives him a really good chance to get everything planned out. And there wouldn't be any chances in there for him to choke. Because ultimately, the only way I'd really win a heads-up banning versus Settled, or at least would have at the time, was if it was RNG and I won through that, or if he fumbled because he was too nervous. Because like I said, with the form I was in last year during GG's filming after not having played for a long time at all, I definitely was not in a position to beat Settled at anything that was purely in-game. So give me like anagrams and I probably would have beat him because I'm just a nerd with words. But other than that, he had a big advantage. And I didn't let it get to me, but it definitely was in the back of my mind as I was planning that I was at a disadvantage due to the skill gap at the time. So for the actual challenge itself, I have 3 things to talk about. First is that it was basically a pickpocketing challenge. The only problem is getting to the desert is like a really lengthy process. Also, I only have 89 thieving. And I feel like thieving is one of the best ways to get money. So, I don't know, man. I will say, I think this ended up being really lame. It was such a cool challenge and concept, but the fact that the best way to cast pretty much every spellbook was to just pickpocket the nearest NPC that gave gold and use that to get the runes was a little unfortunate because I think it kind of undersold how cool the challenge could have been. I think it would have been a lot better if thieving wasn't allowed, for example, because then you'd have to find different ways to source the GP in a more creative way. But at the same time, you could just chalk that up to me being bitter that I lost because I didn't realize there were so many people you could pickpocket near these altars. Regardless, little disappointed that the best way to make money for the challenge was exactly the same in every single location, because I think Settle did optimize that and he played it really well. It's just unfortunate that there weren't varied ways to get the money, and it was just best done by pickpocketing. The second thing I want to talk about is I didn't realize this at the time, but after I used my fairy ring to get to the Arceus spellbook, within the rules of the challenge, I had literally no way to complete it because I couldn't get to the desert. So this is my fault, but my account does not have the Desert Elite Diary done. And actually, I'm on it right now, and I still don't have it because of the thieving level. I think, 2 levels short, and it's not boostable. But rest assured, if I'm in GG Season 5, I will be completing this. But anyway, at the time, you couldn't earn money before you swapped your spellbook. So you had to get to the next altar, swap your spellbook, and then start earning gold. And I didn't actually have any way to get into the desert without money because I couldn't enter either Shantae Pass, and I didn't have any other way into the desert at the time. Right after the challenge, I thought that the Temperos boat would get you there for free. You could go to Temperos and then just run straight into the desert for free. Turns out there's also a pass there. So I would have needed 5 coins either way, and I had no way to earn it. So I actually realized during the challenge, as I was trying to get on the Ancient Spellbook, that I had already lost and there was no chance to win. That said, this isn't an excuse for losing, because what happened was as I realized that I couldn't get into the desert in any way, shape, or form without breaking the rules, I looked at Discord and I saw that Settled had just unmuted at the same exact time that I was unmuting to ask about the desert. And so I just figured he was done and he had won. And it just wouldn't be that big of a deal to unmute and be like, yo, Soup, I can't do this challenge. Oh my gosh. Because I can't even pickpocket the guy because I don't have coins yet. I gotta... Shoot, dude. This whole challenge is bricked. I assume I've lost. Well, I'm still going, but so I literally can't get through the Shantae Pass because I haven't switched spellbooks and I can't earn 5 GP to go through. And what happened actually was Settled at that exact time had unmuted to say to Soup that he couldn't cast an Arceus spell because of the Kingdom Divided quest that he didn't have done. So we actually had a very similar type of issue, and we both unmuted at the same time to ask about it. But basically, Settled was already on the Arceus spellbook and was only, say, 30 seconds or a minute from getting the runes he needed and finishing the challenge that way. No, I mean, I wasn't close at all. I have Ancients left, and I'm like nowhere near doing it. And I still had yet to get on the Ancient spellbook. So it didn't matter, which I'm very glad about. But I did realize that there was no way that I could get into the desert at all. And I think Soup was like, yeah, just go ahead and pickpocket a warrior or man or whatever for 5 GP and you can get in that way. And the third thing is that a bunch of people are claiming that I cheated. Like I've had people DM me and be like, you cheated and still lost, LOL. Because I used the Lunar Home Teleport as my spell for the Lunar Spellbook. Apparently, Stefan also got asked about this on stream and said something like, well, he was already behind, so I just let it slide. But actually, I asked him before the challenge started whether I could use a Home Teleport as my spell. And maybe he didn't realize that I meant as the spell for that spellbook to count, but I did, and I got his approval, as you can see from this message that I will post. So before the challenge started, I basically thought the Home Teleport is a free spell that I can use for any of the 4 spellbooks. Where is it going to save me the most time and or money? And I decided on Lunars because the altar for Lunars is relatively hard to get to, and for me, not knowing there was someone I could pickpocket nearby, it was going to be the hardest one to earn gold for. So what I decided to do was skip having to earn gold entirely for that one, and just immediately use that Home Teleport as my Lunar spell. Ultimately, I've come to the realization that it'd be way better to use that on the Ancient spellbook because the pyramid is so far from anywhere to earn gold and then buy runes that it would save you like 5 minutes or so. Like it'd be a huge time save to use on the Ancient spellbook, so I should have done it there. But unfortunately, I was thinking more about the travel than anything. And I don't know, I just went ahead and used it on the Lunar spell. But totally allowed. Soup specifically said I could do it. and they're just a bunch of goobers like messaging me, calling me a cheater and stuff, which makes me roll my eyes because, of course, none of them have any idea what the actual rules of the challenge were or what was said in DMs. So figured I'd clear that one up because obviously I'm not gonna cheat because I'm not a scumbag. But anyway, that one's less important. Just figured I would include it so that knowledge was out there because people love just speculating about things when they don't actually have the information. All that said, Settle did an awesome job. His plan was better than mine. He executed better than I did, and he wins the banning. And I am officially eliminated from Gielinor Games Season 4. I gotta say, it was an absolute blast. And I also will add that I left the Discord after losing because I didn't want to have the ending spoiled. So if you see me in game, like probably 100 people have over the last couple of weeks, and ask me, yo, who wins? Tell me who wins. I don't know. I genuinely have no idea what happened after this, and I'm very excited to get to watch it without any spoilers. I do want to talk a little bit about Gielinor Games as a whole, how I feel about the whole season, and the future. So first off, I think this season was just a ton of fun. I think it was a good format. I think that the cast was incredible. A whole lot of skill, probably the most skilled cast on average that has ever been on a Gielinor Games. And I also think it was incredible for entertainment value because think of the bannings we have this season. Think of solo mission Bodhi. Bodhi settled v the victim. Not to toot my own horn too much, but I did win last season. And that's just so far. There's at least one more banning before the final. Now that I think about it, there's probably only one more banning. Given what Soup said at the end of last episode, there's probably some kind of purge and then immediately a final. So that will be interesting. I'm not sure how many people will be in the final. I would guess 5 or 6. I love it. See, this is the kind of stuff I've been missing out on, having all the information. I love this. This is the fun kind of speculation. But regardless, super cool season, a ton of huge matchups, a lot of excitement, and I think that the format was good to run back from last season. But I will say, I do think next season will have a different format. It almost has to. We had the same format in season 3 and season 4. I'm really, really hoping that we get some kind of teams format next season. I expect it because I don't think Soup would just do the same exact thing he's done for the last couple of seasons. I think it'd be kind of lame, and I think he wants to shake it up. So hopefully we get a team season next season. I'm thinking either like a tribe style, like Survivor, where it's teams of maybe 6 or 7, I would say, like 3 teams of 7 or 4 teams of 5. Where we see the teams compete against each other in challenges, and then maybe the losing teams have to send one person each into a banning, or the losing team has 2 people that go against each other in a banning, or something like that, until we eventually end up with few enough people that it becomes one group again, more in the format of the last couple seasons we've had. I also really like the challenges that we had this season. We had a lot of classics, the moneymakers and Gilligesser that we're always going to have on a season. But we also had some really cool, unique challenges. I thought the escape room banning was incredible. I thought all the gear collection challenges, like the Fashionscape, were really fun. The banning I was in, it was still a really, really cool challenge. And I think that getting more creative with the challenges is definitely better than worse. Oh, and how could I forget Prop Hunt? Prop Hunt was an absolute blast. Maybe like to see it a little earlier in the season when the stakes are lower, but regardless, incredible challenge. Ton of fun to compete in and hopefully to watch. And I just think that more creativity with the challenges is just better for everyone. And I want to say that if you have a great idea for a challenge, Soup always does a survey and he accepts suggestions. And yeah, I think you can actually join his Discord in the Gielinor Games channel and suggest a challenge too. There are a ton of options for getting a cool challenge out there into his periphery and then maybe having him end up using it for the future. Because some of these challenges definitely were viewer suggested in the first place. I would love to see more challenges like these. And speaking of loving to see more challenges, I got one final thing, which is that I absolutely loved participating in season 4 of Gielinor Games. It stings to get eliminated, but man, I'm glad I got to experience it, interact with all these awesome content creators, and of course you all, the fans. It's been a blast making the review videos. I just hope I get to do it again. So if you guys enjoyed me on this season, let Soup know. Like I said, he always puts out a survey. He asks, who you enjoyed seeing, who you'd like to see back, who you'd like to see who you haven't seen, what you thought of the challenges. Give him your feedback because the man cares so much, and he absolutely cares about the fans' thoughts on the season. which includes basically you all having a say in whether or not you want to see me back. So if you do, let them know. I'd love to participate again. If I get the invite, I will absolutely accept it. I hopefully made a pretty good impact this season, and it was a ton of fun. I loved every second of it. I wouldn't have traded being in this season for anything. And this Dead Men Mode All Stars, all these community events are an absolute blast. I love making the review videos. I love talking to you guys, like reading your comments, answering questions, providing behind the scenes. It's just got to be one of my favorite things in content creation. So if you enjoyed it, let Soup know, let me know. I'm also considering making a Dead Men Mode All Stars summary. It's been requested by quite a few people. So if you do want to see that, just drop a comment or a like on a comment that says something about it. Because unfortunately, while I don't have any footage, I do have quite a few thoughts on the week. I could talk a little bit about the team, what made it fun, what I'd love to see if the event gets run back again, which hopefully it will because it was immensely successful. And yeah, just let me know about that. Also, I've been streaming. I'm trying to do about 2-3 streams a week and hopefully keep that consistent going forward. I'm working on finishing all of the combat achievements and probably maxing my account, especially if I get into next GG season. I'm trying to be maxed. I'm trying to have a kingdom divided and all the quests done, and I'm trying to have all the achievement diaries done. I would love to see some of you guys in my Twitch channel. I will link it in the description. And outside of that, I just want to thank you all so much for watching. If you were cheering for me, thank you. If you're cheering against me, thank you. It's been a blast, and I hope to see you all again for Season 5. I hope to see you all in a stream, and I may very well see you all in a Dead Men Mode All-Stars review before long. As always, I've been V the Victim. I was victimized this episode, and hopefully I'll get my chance to have some revenge in Season 5. Take it easy, everyone.